Welcome to this episode of Wealth Without Borders podcast. And today I'm delighted to have with me David Thomas. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you, Howard. Lovely to be here.
And lovely to have you. And whereabouts are you in the world, David, and what's the weather like?
I'm in Sydney, Australia, and it's a beautiful winter sunny day here. Beautiful blue skies, sunshine, and just a little bit cooler because we're sort of approaching the winter period, but very lovely weather here in the winter.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I'm a bit jealous because although it's so-called spring here, we're suffering a bit of rain, but there you go. Weather out of the way. For those of you who don't know David, he is a keynote speaker, a thought leader, and an entrepreneur. And David equips business leaders with the knowledge and tools to navigate the cross-cultural challenges involved when they're doing business in Asia Pacific, and he helps them develop their own strategy for success in the region. And he's well known, in fact, in Australia as a China expert with a wealth of experience in financial services, business and investment. And he's lived and worked in London, Hong Kong, and Sydney. So I'm really looking forward to this, David. The podcast title is Reducing Friction Between East and West. So I'm keen to know about that. As you know, there's 8 questions in just 8 minutes. So are you ready for the challenge?
Ready when you are.
Okay, brilliant. So 8 minutes to go. Question number 1. Who is your ideal client, David?
Well, my ideal client is generally an Australian, innovative, dynamic, generally smaller SME type business that wants to do business in Asia and particularly in China.
Okay, fantastic. 7 minutes 40 remaining. Question number 2, what's the problem that you solve?
Well, obviously, there are a number of problems that need to be solved in that journey. But I regard myself as running an Ocean's 11 model, which is that we're trying to storm the Bellagio, and I need 11 people around me who can do all the different pieces that we're going to need along the way. And I'm sort of Danny Ocean, straight out of jail, trying to be the kind of coordinator of all that. So basically what I'm trying to do is to reduce friction between East and West to enable business outcomes to happen. But I surround myself with a lot of people that provide, individual input and expertise on specific issues. Right. But ultimately, I'm trying to help reduce the friction to enable a foreign business to do business in Asia, and particularly in China, which I regard as the financial engine of Asia anyway.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. Well, I love that analogy of Ocean's 11, particularly appropriate perhaps in this region. So right. 6 minutes 34 remaining. Question number 3, what are the typical symptoms that people with these frictions tend to experience?
Yeah, they're always in a hurry. It's people don't really appreciate the difficulties of doing business in such a foreign environment and some of those cultural challenges that exist. And in my experience, people go too quick. They're in too much of a hurry. They don't spend the time thinking, researching and working out how to do it properly. And that's usually the problem. Too much impatience. People are moving too fast.
Right, got it. And 5 minutes 52 remaining. Question number 4. When they're moving too quickly, what are the common mistakes that people make when they're trying to solve these issues?
Well, they ignore or don't appreciate the challenge involved in building long-term sustainable relationships, which is so critical to the way Asia functions. We always have to remember in the West that in the East, there's never really been an established legal system, and the way business gets done in Asia is amongst friends, families, trusted networks. And so to penetrate those networks, you have to spend time building those relationships. And that's usually the bit that takes the most time and the bit that people are most impatient about. But, I've been to, over the years, endless dinners and lunches and, social events to build the trust and the relationship without necessarily looking for business outcomes. And that just takes time. It's very different to doing business in an environment where you can depend on the legal system to sort out any problems that you come across. And of course, in America and the West, we're used to taking people to court if they create any problems for you. In Asia, that's not how it works. And so, you have to spend the time on the relationships.
Fantastic advice there. 4 minutes 27 remaining. Question number 5. What's one valuable free action that people checking out the show today can implement that will further help them solve this problem?
Well, everything that I've learned about doing business in Asia and building relationships in Asia, I've written about in a free ebook called 3 Cups of Tea, which is all about the process you go through to build those long-term relationships. So you move from being a stranger to a friend to being part of the trusted relationship. And that's a free ebook that you can download from my website, and I would love people to read it.
Fantastic. And we'll give the link in the podcast. Thank you so much for that, David. 3 minutes 43 remaining. Question number 6. What's a valuable free resource apart from that ebook you can direct people to that might further help them with the problem?
Well, I think that in most Western countries, there's a very well-developed Asian community. And certainly here in Australia, in Sydney, we have one of the largest Chinese New Year festivals outside China. So there's no shortage of places you can go to build relationships within Asian and Chinese communities. And you can do that in your own hometown. And you should start doing that today if you're not doing it already, because you'll learn a lot from eating their food, understanding their culture, and building relationships with people who are living inside your own hometown and can see some of these east-west frictions themselves.
That's fantastic advice, and also full permission to go out and eat loads of food, which I love.
Absolutely.
2 minutes 41 remaining. Question number 7. What concept or book or program or talk has been most impactful in your experience?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess the way to answer that is from a personal point of view. When I started to get fascinated in China, and I started going there in the 80s, but I read a book called Mr. China, which was written by Tim, I've forgotten his surname now, I'm sorry, but you'll find it, Mr. China. It's a great story about a foreigner in China in the very early days of China opening up, and some of the adventures that he came across when he was traveling around and trying to do joint ventures between American firms and Chinese firms. He's actually a British guy, Tim, I'll get his name in a minute, we'll put it in the notes. Okay. And that was I found that a really interesting start for me to understand, what was happening in China at a sort of grassroots business level. And of course, I've read many books about China since, but that was the first, and I've never forgotten it.
Oh, fantastic! And we will put that into the notes. 1 minute 30 remaining. Question number 8. What's the one question I should have asked you that would give great value to people checking out the show?
Yes, well, I guess the question that probably should be asked is what makes Asia unique to globally. And to me, the answer to that question is that you have to think of Asia not as one country, which I think Westerners tend to do. You need to think about Asia like you might of Europe. And I don't need to tell an expatriate audience that Europe has many different cultures, languages, dialects, food, completely different ways of thinking and doing things. And Asia is just the same, but just but of course it has the same issues and presents itself in just the same way. And so when people say to me, we have an Asian strategy, or we'd like to do business in Asia, I find that sort of like saying we'd like to do business in Europe, and I think we very quickly need to get Westerners to think of Asia as being many markets, not just one market, and get very specific about which parts of Asia they're targeting. And I think that's probably the greatest lesson that people learn as they travel around Asia and realize how significant the differences are, particularly those who've not spent a lot of time as well.
Fantastic. And you came in with 2 whole seconds to go there, David. So what a wonderful value-packed 8 minutes that was. And I know it was extremely valuable because it went so fast.
Very good. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you so much, David. That's been a real pleasure. Many thanks for checking out Wealth Without Borders podcast. I'd love you to head over to iTunes, subscribe, and leave us a review. And if you'd be kind enough to do that, I would really appreciate it. And then if you want to know more about what I do, check out wealthwithoutborders.net.